What's up, everybody? It's HBT with Straight Up Wrestling Show, guys. Here to talk about, man, a feud that happened years ago, back in 1989. This feud happened, and it was a short feud. It's a feud that I wish would have went on a lot longer than it did. But the short period that we did have the feud, it was very explosive, guys. And I want to talk about this feud, man. I definitely want to talk about it. And this feud has to do with four legendary wrestlers, guys. Four names that's gonna go down. That's already went down in the history of wrestling. And hey, you can't deny these guys. Nobody can deny these guys. These guys, each and every one of these guys, are household names, and they was household names even when they was wrestling in the territories. And I'm talking about Mid Atlantic Championship Wrestling, basically. Georgia Championship Wrestling, as far as one of the tag teams, pretty much built these guys' careers. And I mean, out of these little small territories, these guys became household names. So this right here is this what I want to talk about is something that happened. It was a tag team match. Well, it was actually a 6-man tag team match with the Road Warriors, and they had Sting as their partner. And a little bit later, I'll tell you who they was wrestling against. But right now, I can't even think of who they was wrestling against. So I'm not gonna make a guess. I kind of have an idea, but I'm gonna read it. I'm gonna read it out of this magazine, man. This wrestling magazine. I'm gonna read it. The Road Warriors versus Sting and Lex Luger. And for all you World Wrestling Federation fans, guys, that was, ladies and gentlemen who was watching the World Wrestling Federation back then. This happened in World Championship Wrestling, guys. WCW, NWA, WCW. That's where this happened. So I'm gonna actually read the story from The Wrestler, the magazine called The Wrestler, guys. A guy named Bob Smith. So I'm gonna read his article. I'm gonna give him credit for this, and it was in 1989. Road Warriors versus Sting and Lex Luger. And let me give you a little bit. Of background. I remember when this happened. Happened on WTBS, the Superstation. The Road Warriors was teaming with Sting. Usually they team with Dusty Rhodes, but Dusty Rhodes was out of town at the time. He was wrestling somewhere else, or he was doing something, maybe a wrestling convention or something like that. But Dusty Rhodes was not there, so they had Sting substitute for Dusty Rhodes. And so Sting was in there wrestling with the Road Warriors. And this is like when Sting was really getting his momentum. This is when Sting was really building up his career. He was a younger guy, and Sting had just had that 60-minute match at Clash of Champions with Ric Flair, probably 8 months prior or whatever, something like that. But he had just had recently had that match with Ric Flair, and he was coming up, man, and people were just going crazy about Sting, and he was fast becoming the most popular wrestler in WCW at that time, NWA, WCW. Had he reached the pinnacle, had he surpassed the Road Warriors at that time, as far as popularity go, I'm not going to say he had completely surpassed them, but he was right on the heels of the Road Warriors, man. Sting was like the new Ricky Steamboat. You know, Ricky Steamboat came out of Mid Atlantic Championship Wrestling, which eventually became WCW. Who else wrestled as far as in that WCW lineage? It was very popular. Magnum TA. Sting was like the new Ricky Steamboat, the new Magnum TA. Magnum TA, who wrestled Mid Atlantic Championship Wrestling, which eventually, like I said, became WCW. Mid Atlantic Championship Wrestling became NWA, pretty much as Mid Atlantic Championship Wrestling always was in the NWA. But Jim Crockett, that's Jim Crockett Promotions, they pretty much bought out all of the NWA. So everybody that was in NWA, Georgia Championship Wrestling, Florida Championship Wrestling, and all the other ones, Central State Championship Wrestling, all of them pretty much joined Mid-Atlantic. Jim Crockett, he absorbed it, just like Vince McMahon, who was buying up territories. He pretty much bought up territories, all the rest of the NWA territories, to compete with Vince, to hold Vince off. So Sting came in, and he was another Ricky Steamboat as far as in the Mid-Atlantic Wrestling, Championship Wrestling area, NWA, Magnum TA, Dusty Rhodes. Sting was fast becoming the most popular wrestler in the territory and the biggest threat to Nature Boy Ric Flair. But in this case, he was teaming up with the Road Warriors. And the Road Warriors, the match was going pretty good. They tagged in Sting, I think, one time, and Sting was, all the people were just going crazy when Sting got in there. Sting was in there for a short time, and I think when he got in there the second time, they tagged him in, and the fans were going crazy over Sting. And I tell you what, that ticked Animal off, guys. Ticked Animal off big time. And Animal just started looking around, and I just really think it just got all over Animal. And he looking around, he looking at Hulk. Hulk started getting angry, and they was getting angry about this. And Sting was just pretty much doing this thing, man, high flying in the ring, and just pretty much looking really good. And I think Sting was pretty much going for his finisher, but it didn't happen. The Road Warriors went in there and jumped Sting. They decided, hey, we're gonna take care of this dude, and they pretty much started beating Sting up, man. They beat him down. And Lex Luger, who was always a friend, him and Sting had become real good friends, even though Lex Luger had his problems with Ric Flair for a long time. And Lex Luger used to be part of the Four Horsemen, who Sting was basically Ric Flair's #1 contender at that time. But Luger came in and he helped Sting out. He came in to get the Road Warriors off of him, but basically he pretty much was, they backed off, and he pretty much went to look out for Sting, and the Road Warriors beat the living crap out of him too. So basically I'm going to talk about it as Sting and Lex Luger decided to team up, and Sting and Lex Luger was partners before. So they were familiar with each other, not as familiar as the Road Warriors, because the Road Warriors had already been teaming with each other since I think like 1984. Was it late 83? 1984. They had already been teaming with each other at this time, about 5.5 to 6 years. They had been a tag team, and what a devastating tag team the Road Warriors were. And for all you people, like I said, that used to just watch the World Wrestling Federation, because I know there's WWF, WWE fans who only knew the Road Warriors as LOD. They was the Road Warriors in the NWA, WCW. They had a career before they got to the World Wrestling Federation. I want to let each and every one of you know, the Legion of Doom was a faction, guys. It was a faction, and the Road Warriors was part of that faction. It was Paul Ellering's faction. The Road Warriors had their part in it, but it was the Road Warriors. It was the Spoiler, King Kong Bundy, even though Paul Ellering tries to say that King Kong Bundy was not in the Legion of Doom. He 100% was in the Legion of Doom. But it was the Spoiler, Jake the Snake Roberts, and King Kong Bundy. And I think they had one, and Matt Bourne. I think it was Matt Bourne. Or was it Buzz Sawyer? No, Matt Bourne, I think. After all those guys left, it was only thing that was left in that group was Jake the Snake Roberts and Precious Paul Ellering. He had them, and he kept calling it the Legion of Doom. The Road Warriors ended up being the Legion of Doom. So that's the reason why they continued on with the Legion of Doom. And it was easy for Vince McMahon when they ended up going to WWF to use Legion of Doom. But let's get back to the story, guys. Road Warriors versus Sting and Luger, NWA power structure. Reading this out of the Wrestler, guys. And pretty much, I'm going to let you see a picture of this. But guys, pretty much, I'm not going to show all this to tell you the truth. But maybe I will show a few things of me talking about this NWA power structure. All right. This is by Bob Smith, guys. It says, Paul Ellering had a plan, a blueprint for terror that would have extremely shocking repercussions. Sting was right for the taking, said the nefarious manager. We had studied his moves for months. Certain weaknesses became evident. Without weaknesses, that's a hard word for me to say. You love to know, wouldn't you? The things we learned assured us that Sting would be well on his way down the path to destruction. So Paul Ellering was saying this was a plan, and the Road Warriors was already planning to get Sting. And I remember when the Road Warriors went out there, and Animal, man, Animal, when they went out and they had a interview, and they was talking about why they attacked Sting. They said, man, Animal was just hot. He said, the Warriors, we've been painting our faces for years. He said, and this guy come up here, he got his face painted and all the fans going crazy. He did not like that. Didn't like that at all. And him and Hulk was talking about, forget about Sting and Luger and all that. They didn't care about it, and they wanted to destroy them. And a little bit later on down the road, I think like a week or two later, maybe it was 2 weeks later, they had an interview with Road Warrior Hawk and Warrior Animal, and he was talking about the feud. They was talking about the matchups that was coming up against Sting and Luger. And Hawk pretty much said that Luger and Sting had those pretty bodies, that they had pretty muscles, not like Hawk and Animal, who just had rugged muscles built up in the gym, just looked like rough, tough characters, which they were. But they had, especially Hawk, had a nice body, chiseled body. Pretty much, when you look at Animal, a barrel chested body, big, powerful dude. But those guys was muscular, man. And I tell you what, hard to match those guys back in the day with strength. It's not too many people did that. All right, let's move on. It says, we may never find out precisely the weaknesses Ellering was talking about, but we all know too well the details of the Warriors' attack on Sting and Lex Luger in Richmond, Virginia last October. Hawk and Animal had Sting as their partner in an NWA six-man title match between Dusty Rhodes. No. Says Hawk and Animal had Sting as their partner in an NWA six-man title match because Dusty Rhodes was making a charity appearance at the time. The unexpected substitution fit the Warriors' plan just fine. So, like I said, this right here, they already had a plan to get Sting somewhere. And the Warriors was fan favorites, and they was rolling with Dusty Rhodes a little earlier, Magnum TA, whoever needed them, they was rolling with these guys and pretty much rolling with them to take on the Koloff, take on the Four Horsemen or whatever. And that's one thing that the Road Warriors were saying. They was tired of people like Sting, Dusty Rhodes, and all them calling them up to help them out with their problems. Lex Luger helped them out with their problems with the Four Horsemen and the Koloffs. They said, you always call us. And they was tired of that. Okay? All right, let's get back to where we was at. All right, they said, and then it goes into said they injured Sting and disposed of Luger when he charged the ring to help his friend. So they're talking about the match there. And it says, and then one of the Warriors said, what an idiot Sting is. Hawk mocked. Okay, so Hawk said, what an idiot Sting is. It said, we set him up and he took the bait. That's what he gets for being such a lousy partner. I don't know why we ever did anything for him in the first place. Talk about a loser. Wow, man. Wow. Said, that's right, barked Animal. What does Sting, or should I say Stink, ever do for us? Nothing. He's a leech. Just like Rose and Luger. From now on, we only answer to ourselves. Says such words from the Legion of Doom may frighten lesser men, but Sting and Luger are not lesser men. Both men are former rule breakers. They are familiar with the Warriors' tactics, and when threatened, they'll use those tactics against any opponents, especially the Warriors. Anybody who knows me and Lex knows we're not afraid of the Warriors, Sting said. In fact, I think they're afraid of us. So Sting was saying, hey, these guys are afraid of us. We're not afraid of them. Okay, Sting. Okay. Go ahead, forehead. Go ahead and talk that noise. He said, in fact, I think they're afraid of us, and I'll tell you why. It's Ellering without him in their, he said, it's Ellering. Without him in their corner, they have to think for themselves. Now take a look at Hawk and Animal's faces and tell me how capable they are of thinking for themselves. So Sting was basically saying, man, these guys are stupid, man. He said these guys are idiots and they don't have no brain. So he's saying they can't think for themselves, guys. Once again, I'm reading this out of The Wrestler, guys, and giving Bob Smith all the credit in the world, man. All the credit in the world. All right. Says anybody who knows me and Lex knows we're not afraid of the Warriors, Sting said. All right. It says, all right, let's see where were I at? Where was I at? All right. Sting said Lex and I have them beat by a mile in that department. So he said they have, as far as the thinking and smarts, they have them beat by a mile in that department. He said we'll outsmart them every time we fight them. He said, and then Luger said, listen to Sting, pal. Luger added, he speaks the truth. we have the Warriors on a serious run. It's kind of like my feud with Flair. He talks a big game. All right, let me move on over to that page right there. But yeah, so Luger is the one who was in a feud with Flair at that time. He said he talks a big game. When it comes time to pay up, he falls apart. So he's saying Ric Flair was falling apart, which Ric Flair wasn't falling apart. Luger was pretty much putting it on him, but Ric Flair always came out on top. You know, he always would take Luger down, or Sting, whoever he was going against back in those days. All right, said the Warriors may match me and Sting physically, maybe, but psychologically, we have them beat hands down. Try playing mind games with us and you'll get burned bad. All right. So Luger said, you know, hey, they got the Warriors beat psychologically by a mile. All right. Then said, but there are those familiar with Ellering's managerial career, however, who strongly disagree with Luger. Said, look, whether or not Sting and Luger like it, Ellering is going to be at ringside, said NWA expert Donald Wayne. Paul's a master of psychological warfare. I've seen him stare at guys and they've turned to mush. Says, believe me, Sting and Luger haven't seen anything yet. They've yet to experience what it's like when Ellering turns it up a notch. Paul's got a whole bag full of tricks he hasn't unveiled yet. Just because he's been something of a good guy over the past few years doesn't mean he's forgotten how to be evil. And yes, at that time, man, you know, like I said, the Road Warriors had been fan favorites for a while. I think they became fan favorites in 85, 86, because the fans just started cheering them. And as bad as they were, they was evil, didn't need to be dirty tactics all the time in the ring, but they just overpowered everybody. They just destroyed everybody. And they was heels. And when they came back, because they came back from the AWA, because they was in Georgia Championship Wrestling first in the NWA, and they went over to AWA and pretty much ran the table over there and came back to the NWA to pretty much face off against the Koloffs, and the Koloffs was just destroying people. And so Jim Crockett brought them over to pretty much shut that down, and they came in, they basically shut that down. You had a lot of 6-man tag team matches, and they had Dusty Rhodes teaming with them. And I think, you know, and later on you had Sting, Lex Luger teaming with them, and they was pretty much taking on, you know, because they came in and take on pretty much the Koloffs and Midnight Express and people like that, and the Four Horsemen. And a lot of 6-man tag team matches, they even became world 6-man tag team champions with Dusty Rhodes. So they was doing a lot of things, and like I said, they was just hugely popular, man. Nobody at that time could get a bigger pop than the Road Warriors. Nobody. Okay? And I'm talking about even Hulk Hogan over in the WWE. Nobody. With, you know, as far as crowd, as far as the size of the crowd, Hogan might have wrestled in some bigger crowds, but he didn't get a pop like the Road Warriors. Road Warriors got bigger pops than even Ric Flair in the NWA. It was wild, man. It was crazy. All right. All right, says, whatever one thinks of Ellering's skills as a manager, he is clearly going to be a major factor in this feud. Although they don't have a manager of their own, Sting and Luger often turn to Dusty Rhodes for advice. Turn to Dusty Rhodes for advice and for tag team partnership. At Starrcade, while Luger challenged Flair for the NWA World title, Dusty teamed with Sting to wrestle the Warriors for the World Tag Belts. And it says, son, anytime I can, so Dusty Rhodes says, son, anytime I can help my good friends, I am happy to oblige, Rhodes said. They're good man, the best we have. The Warriors are going to be the sorriest bunch of losers you ever saw when we do it to them. Sting and Luger represent a new era in the NWA, if you will. By the summer of 89, I predict those Warriors will be on the run. Run clear out of here, Dusty said. Ooh, baby, I can't wait. It's going to be so sweet. And you know how Dusty is, man. So sweet. Probably stuck his booty out there, too. Then Dusty said, but now it's too early for Rhodes to celebrate. 3 matches during Battlestar Week. So they had 3 matches against the Warriors, I think, in Battlestar Week, the NWA's prelude to Starrcade. And that's something I had forgot about, guys, Battlestar Week. That was pretty cool. Gave a good indication of how this Warrior Sting Luger war is progressing. There were no winners. 2 matches ended in a double, so they had 3 matches. Said 2 matches ended in a double count out. The third was a double DQ, double disqualification. And then it says, I've wrestled all 4 of these men. Dr. Death Steve Williams said, I've wrestled all these men. A recent addition to Kevin Sullivan's Varsity Club. That was Dr. Death Steve Williams, who just had joined Kevin Sullivan's Varsity Club. He said, they're all good, damn good. I'm not going to get involved in their affairs because, frankly, I don't care for these guys. He said, but I'll say this. The guys who win this one are going to be big men around here for a long time to come. And the ones who lose, well, he said they're going to be hanging their heads low for a pretty long time, too. And he said, what about the NWA World Tag Team title? Isn't that the most important consideration? And it says, Sting said, this has gone too far beyond any title, Sting asserted. Said, this is about proving a point. Hawk, Animal, and Ellering think they can get ahead by lying and cheating and launching sneak attacks. That might work with some of these other teams, but me and Lex are going to make sure they don't get away with it on us. All right. Okay. He said, I don't care if it takes months or even years. Lex and I are going to finish this one out on top. All fans can count on us. Just a little more time, Ellering claims. All right. So Paul Ellering said, just a little more time. Ellering claims with a sinister smile, and we'll slam the door in their faces. 6 months from now, you'll be asking who Sting and Luger were. A chilling thought. All right, guys. Well, Paul Ellering was saying that, hey, 6 months from now, you'll be asking who Sting and Lex Luger was. But I think his 6 months, that 6 months later, the Road Warriors was gone. I think they went to Japan. I think they went up to Japan or whatever. And they came back to WCW a little time later, but they went up to Japan not too long after that. I think they joined the World Wrestling Federation or whatever. But Sting and Lex Luger, we know the story with them. Those guys elevated. They went a lot farther in WCW. Sting had pretty much had been there a couple years. I mean, going on a couple years, really building up his career. Lex Luger had been there about 4 years and really pretty much already into his own, but always had trouble in his feuds against the Nature Boy Ric Flair. Really good, outstanding. Had a great feud with Nikita Koloff, and I think Sting feuded with him a little bit too. But man, as far as this feud with the Road Warriors, it didn't last too much longer after what the story that I had there. It lasted a couple more weeks, and then basically the Road Warriors was out of there. But they was going back and forth, and man, I saw a couple of the matches, and they was brutal. They was brutal. Guys, that's all I have for now. But if you like what you heard, definitely hit that like, share, subscribe, hit that notification bell. Doesn't matter what platform you on, guys. Join the Straight Up Wrestling Show. Appreciate each and every one of you. Stay straight up. Peace.